Well, John, I didn't think the viewers would actually listen to me. They are peppering us with thoughts on what the Eagles should do. Take an actual player at 22 or make a trade for an established guy. And we talked about it yesterday. You can go back and watch yesterday's episode about Patrick Surtain. But if that was available, which somebody said
That's
earlier,
easy.
right,
That's
mark
easy.
my words, that will happen. Well, guess what, sir? If that does happen, you will get your words marked and you will get a handshake from me because that's a move you make 50 times over. I don't know that 22 gets that done, though, does it?
I've said this pretty consistently. I think Denver would trade Patrick Surtain to get a quarterback, but I don't know why you would trade him if you're not getting a quarterback.
They would trade for 22, though. You think that's
No, other than if you want to go the layered approach and they're adding another pick to go get a quarterback, maybe you can piggyback it that way. The point is, I'm not giving up that asset for anything other than a quarterback, basically. And can you do it in different ways and add picks? And that's what Minnesota's tried to do. That's what the Eagles did in the past when they made 2 trades to get up to go get Carson Wentz, and you do it that layered way. But I don't think 22 is going to handle them that much. And I think Denver's more likely to go down. Denver's the team that everybody's talking to because they seem to want to go down from 12, and that's because they want to draft a quarterback. But that 5th or 6th quarterback is not worthy of that 12 overall pick. And you make it more palatable for yourself. You get some extra draft capital. And whether it's the Eagles, the Steelers, or somebody else goes up to get a cornerback, a lot of moving parts. But Patrick Surtain, man, he's a really good player. I've never understood why Denver would want to get rid of him other than, yeah, I get it for a quarterback because they're so quarterback desperate. And a lot of teams have pigeonholed themselves into a corner this year, particularly that need quarterbacks, particularly Denver and Minnesota. Is there a third? Las Vegas. I mean, Jaden Daniels is trying to get himself to Las Vegas, but I don't think that's going to happen.
John, this time of the year, you start to formulate in your mind. By the way, a fresh hour of Birds 365 is live right now. Bob Groats is coming up in about 19 minutes from now. So we'll add a third voice to the mix. But before we get to Bob, you had a couple trade-up guys that you think are options to move up for that they would possibly target. We get to that time of the year of, all right, who are the guys they would move up for? Who are the legitimate names in your mind that on Friday morning, if I'm back here and I'm filling in on the hosting seat and I say, John, they drafted and traded up for this guy. Who are some of those legitimate options from 22 to where for who?
I think 12 and 16 are the 2 spots you would look at. And 12 is Denver, 16 is Seattle. Those 2 teams seem to indicate they want to move down. So those are positions. If you're going all the way up to 12, I think it's only 2 people in the conversation. No, I should say 3. I'm going to put 2 in a wild card. The 2 obvious ones would be Quinyon Mitchell, Terrion Arnold. And the wild card would be Brock Bowers if he falls because he's one of the best players in the draft. He's one of the few blue chip players. So that's one where you say, all right, this guy's just better than everybody else. And he's only falling. He's only in this position because a lot of teams don't want to draft a tight end. And I know the Eagles have Dallas Goedert, but they drafted Dallas Goedert when Zach Ertz was Dallas Goedert's age now. So they wouldn't be. And you always talk about them needing a third receiver. Well, you can go about it in a different way and essentially play more 12 personnel, 2 tight ends. You have 2 great players on the field with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. But that's a way out there wild card, Brock Bowers. The far more likely scenario would be
so let me stop on Bowers. Let me stop on Bowers real quick. Okay. Now he's on the board and it's 10. and it's now 11's on the board. Is Roseman on the phone immediately once he gets past 10? When does he start to feel like it's a realization and saying, you know what? I didn't think this was possible. There he is. Now I got to get to work.
Well, you probably, with him specifically, you probably got to worry about the Jets. That would be the most likely team. And then when it comes to the corners, you have to worry about Minnesota, but you'll have more certainty because they're going to try to go up to get a quarterback. And
also, let me also spin this into the conversation too, John. Brock Bowers, if he is drafted, what kind of role does that player have with Dallas Goedert? Is he an addition to Goddard? Is he a backup to Goddard? You know what I'm saying? Like, can they get Goddard and him on the field together?
I mean, they're going to play a hell of a lot more 12 personnel with 2 tight ends on the field at the same time. And essentially, Dallas would be the better blocker, unfortunately. So he would probably be the inline tight end more, and Brock would be the more flex receiver. So you're just having a larger, more effective slot receiver, essentially.
Right.
You're just going about it a different way. And, to me, it's such a good player. I don't know how many, let's see, I can run them off, Randy Mueller, Mike Tannenbaum, Mark Dominic, and then draft guys, Rick Saratella, Luke Easterling. They all have the number of real blue chip players, and there's about 6. I'm forgetting people. Ian Cummings, who's one of my favorites. There's about 7, 8, maybe real blue chip players in this draft. And he's one of them from just about everybody. So when you're talking about that kind of talent, that's the only reason I throw him in there as a wild card. And you figure it out, basically.
You do what Chip Kelly did, put up 3 fingers. We need 3 tight ends. I just do this, and then 3 tight ends go on the field.
Yeah, you figure it out. You play more 12 personnel.
But there's been some talk with Bowers that he could be a slot guy. Like that would be his role.
Well, yeah. And he's more of a, he can block. He's, people have compared him to George Kittle, who's tremendous. But I think that's 2-3 years down the road, the blocking part of it. As a flex receiver, he'll be ready day one to be impactful. And, people love skill position players. So then you start talking about they want more and more and more. And you have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley, Dallas Goedert, Brock Bowers. That'd be the greatest offense in the history of football.
You turn into the Cincinnati Bengals, who, they don't have that tight end, but you have those 3 receivers, and their problem was the offensive line, and they still made it to a Super Bowl. Now, last year you lose Burrow, that hurt them, but they have 3 great weapons, and it makes them a legitimate force.
And I want to emphasize, I don't think that's going to happen. I think the Eagles are going up if they're going up to 12, I think they're going to get a corner. If they're going up to 16, they're probably at that point going up to get an offensive lineman. So I think you'll get.
And who's the lineman they would target in a move up?
I would think it would be J.C. Latham or the kid from Washington who doesn't have a difficult name to pronounce, but I always screw it up because I got to look at it to pronounce. Troy Patanu. I think
he's probably one of my favorite players in the draft.
Yeah. He's got no doubt about it. And in fact, a lot of people think he's going to be a guard. The questions with Patanu is, can he move out to right tackle down the road if that's your plan? And the Eagles can go about this different ways, right? Because now they think they seem to think Tyler Steen's more comfortable at right tackle. So maybe it works out that Patanu stays at right guard and
Well,
Tyler Steen eventually moves out to right tackle.
Yeah, John, talk about Steen real fast. He was a third-round pick last year, and obviously a guy that played a little bit of. They moved him to right guard. I think he started a game at guard. And obviously, when they drafted him in the third round, you had this guard competition that Juergens ended up winning. Steen, many people thought could have been the guy because they drafted him in the third round. Did they get to the point where they just now view him as a swing player? As maybe he's not an inside guy and he's a tackle. How are they viewing him after year one?
By the way, it was not a competition. That was one of the funniest things of the offseason and training camp because Nick Sirianni went the entire time saying, wouldn't say Cam Juergens was the starting guard. And, he didn't want to hand him the job, and I got it. But he took every single first team rep. Yeah. And one day he showed up at training camp and he got the question again. And he said, come on, guys. He's the only guy who's taking a first team rep. And we're like, yeah, we know, which is why we're wondering why you wouldn't admit it. But anyway, I digress. As a rookie, I mean, he played, right tackle at Vanderbilt. He played left tackle at Alabama. That's it. He never played inside, but he had short arms. So everybody showed up at the Senior Bowl, all the NFL people, and they wanted to see him play guard. And the Eagles kind of fell in love with him there, and they thought, oh, he projects, he can play guard at the next level. Then he got here, and shockingly, he was more comfortable at tackle. The position he played his entire career at. And so I think, look, as of today, if they had to play on tonight before the draft, he's the starting right guard. So, would there be hiccups? Is he going to get an opportunity? Yes. But if they end up drafting a J.C. Latham or a Patano, yeah, I mean, those guys will likely be the starting right guard. He'll be a backup tackle.
I want to get your opinion on this theory, and I see some people, commenting on this, but it does cross your mind is that, everybody just assumes Stoutland's such a wizard, and you get a guy and he'll work with them. Do you use first round draft capital on that position, or do you say, you know what, I'll take a guy in round 4 because I know that we can get the most out of that particular player?
Say that again. I was reading a comment and because someone had pointed out Tyler Steen's got the right guard locker, so he's the right guard. That's not how it's done. Yeah,
but they played tonight.
They started out, yes, he's the right guard right now. But if they draft a right guard, guess what, Tyler Steen, you're out of luck. So, don't put too much into the lockers of that deciding something. But go ahead. I got distracted.
So, if you're going to take a guy in the first, in other words, hey, you have Jeff Stoutland and you've had such a good track record of getting the most out of players. I mean, you take a look at their offensive line. You got a guy on the 7th round on one side. You had Driscoll, who has played, a 4th round player. You've had Big V, a guy who was a mid-rounder. They've gotten a lot. Opeta. They've gotten a lot out of guys who have been mid-round picks. So are you more apt to say, you know what? You don't have to focus on a guard or back heir apparent tackle in round 1 because we do such a good job of getting the most out of these guys in the mid rounds.
Yes and no. I mean, you use Driscoll and Sua as examples. Yeah, they're pretty good. They ended up being pretty good backup players, but you're not really thrilled when they're
the other guy who went to Pittsburgh. I can't remember. Who went to Pittsburgh last year?
The offensive lineman?
Yeah.
They had a Pitt offensive lineman?
No. Went to the Steelers. He played left guard.
Oh, Isaac.
Right. He was another guy.
Isaac was a 3rd round pick.
Yeah.
I think Jordan Mailata and Jason Kelce are such outliers in Jordan's case, we all know why. He never played football before, but he's got this amazing physical ability. He's 6'8" and he moves like he's 275 pounds, not 380 pounds, and he's got enormous strength, and it all came together. And then they have Kelsey, who's a 6th-round pick, who predated Stoutland, as hard as that is to do. And he's got this incredible movement skills, and you're like, they can draft anybody. Well, they drafted Andre Dillard at number 22 overall. Jeff Stoutland couldn't develop him into an NFL starter. And he went to Tennessee last year, and guess what? He got cut, and now I forget, he just signed with somebody else, Green Bay, I think. So they'll try to reclamate that project. And you bring up Driscoll. Nobody was happy when Sua Opeta was out there. In fact, the Eagles, at one point in the middle of that stretch where Sua had to start, they said, let's take a look at Tyler Steen, because they weren't thrilled with the way Sua Opeta was playing. And guess what? Jack Driscoll was the right backup at right guard, right tackle. And when they needed a guard last year, they said, we're going to use Sua. So you might get the most out of those players, but it doesn't mean they're top tier players. And, guys who are top, and Isaac turned into a really good player.
Yeah.
It took a while, but he turned into a really good player. I think people forget he got benched at one point for Stefan Wisniewski. And it took him years to get where he ultimately was. And that was a Pro Bowl level guard. So that the higher you are, the better skill set, you have a better opportunity. But yeah, Stoutland's probably going to get more out of him than anybody else. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, and offensive line is their sweet spot. So if they're sitting at 22, burning up the phones, can't make the move, is it the most likely that they just go with what they know?
Yeah, I mean, default setting, it's not about going about what you know, but it is their default setting. And when other things like if Howie's plan is to trade up to number 12 for Quinyon Mitchell, it doesn't mean you can accomplish that plan. Maybe Pittsburgh trades up and gets him. Again, maybe Minnesota takes him because they can't get a quarterback. And all of a sudden, plan A's out the window. And then you got to go to plan B, and that's what Howie's good at. He's probably got 4 or 5 contingencies where he'll just go to the next plan, and ultimately that's going to be an offensive lineman. And I think if you're not able to get Mitchell, it could be Terrion Arnold. If you can't make that trade up, it probably goes, plan B probably goes to one of the offensive linemen. That's just sort of the way the foundational principles the Eagles kind of have.
All right. Draft day is almost here. It's one of the most exciting days in the NFL. And the Eagles own pick 22, 50, 53. And then a bunch later on in the draft. We'll do our best to shake them all out. Bob Groats is going to join us on the other side as we still have a bunch of draft conversation and coverage for all you draft nicks out there. Who's the guy that you want to see wearing Kelly green, midnight green, maybe black, maybe white, whatever your favorite Eagles jersey is? Who do you want to see at 22 or a trade? Let us know. We'll be back with more Birds 365. Bob Groats joins us next.